the recordings for the other class, well, one of the other classes. I did get that recording and I did check it out, and it did actually work this time. So I do have the recording for the Organizing Your Financial Paperwork class, and I'll have this one, and then I'll have tomorrow's class. And what I'll do is I'll just send it to the list of people that signed up for the classes. So if you want to go back over and rewatch, you can do that. But if not, you don't need to. So you can just delete that email. But I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with everybody today. How is everybody today? Everybody a thumbs up or
hanging in there?
Hanging in there. That's good. That's good. Sometimes that's all we can ask for. So I just have to find my screen here to share it with you. And we are going to do Who Gets Grandma's Yellow Pie Plate today. So this is actually one of the topics that it's a very serious topic, but it's a really important topic that a lot of people just kind of neglect until it's the end of the end of the time that they can actually work with it. And so this is a great program. It's a wonderful program that was actually developed by the University of Minnesota Extension. And I have modified it for Idaho specific audiences. So if you live in Washington, our Idaho and Washington rules are somewhat similar, but some of them are a little bit different. The information that I'm going to share with you today is truly educational purposes only. And really, truly, we're just, I'm just,
hello.
Hello.
Can Hi, Ian. Alexa, stop. How's your day going?
Well, I'm going to mute it.
It's going pretty good. How about yours?
I cannot hear you either.
Karen, you're
oh, there we go.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'm hearing a lot of background noise, and so I muted everybody, and so I'm going to mute everybody. Okay, so it will go from there. So anyway, I don't know what we left off at, but this this is an educational program from the University of Minnesota Extension, and it's a great program. What I've done here is for Idaho specific audiences, but if you live in Washington, it does work for you as well, so that is fine. I am giving you this information for educational purposes only. This is not intended to be legal advice or anything, although there is a lot of legal stuff in here. So we'll just go with that. And so the question of the day that I always get is, how do you get rid of the stuff? And so we've already talked about the decluttering. We've talked about the organizing your financial paperwork. Now we're going to talk about how you give away the things that mean something to you, and how do you go ahead and transfer that property either after death or during a a crisis or a life transition. So there's all sorts of different things that we're going to talk about. So personal property transfer is generally just ignored completely. People think, oh, that'll just take care of itself, and really it doesn't take care of itself. And a lot of times what happens when it does take care of itself is it doesn't lead to the decisions you would have wanted it to make. So that's what today's discussion is going to be about, is how to open up that dialogue with your family about transferring property, whether it's yours or whether it's theirs. So this is a funny little comic. One day, son, all this will be yours. And we always get a big chuckle out of this, but this is one of the biggest reasons that you want to have this talk with your family today. Although it is kind of funny. In reality, many people are faced with this task, and these decisions often lead to heartbreak during a really sad, challenging, or overwhelming time in their life. And if a person is gone, then it adds another element of that stress. So we want to kind of avoid having to divvy up treasures like this in our circumstances. So you never really know a person until you share an inheritance with them. And attorneys will actually tell us that personal property is actually what causes the most problems for them when they're settling an estate. Both the decisions for non-titled and titled property are important. So the disputes over inheritance could be the last straw with adult children. It could be what completely breaks the relationships apart, or it could be the final blow in a family history that has a ton of issues to start out with anyway. And the legal process to transfer non-titled property is really simple, and it's often not always known. So we're going to take care of that today. Now, I will tell you that my sister and I are very close. And if it came down to where one of us wanted something that belonged to one of our parents, the other one would always concede. I know that we would. However, there are things that we have fought over having to take. So what we're going to have to take when our parents are done with them. So case in point. This is a beloved figure that my great uncle gave my mom years ago, and it's one of my mom's most cherished possessions. But my sister and I have had lengthy discussions over who has to take this when mom no longer wants it or needs it. And it has become a joke in our family, including my mom. My mom laughs right along with us. And I know that when the time comes, my sister and I are both going to want this cat that has literally freaked us out our entire lives. So this cat, its head, don't know if you can tell in the picture, but at its neck, it got knocked over by the wind. It was sitting in front of a window at one time in our childhood, and it got knocked over, and the head broke off of it. And thankfully, my mom was able to repair it, but just one of those little things. So we all have treasures. We all have things that we love and want to pass on to somebody. And so every time somebody tells me that they don't have property to transfer, everybody has property to transfer. And this is another example of this. So my dad's dad, Grampy Herb, was all about his leather vests and his great big old brimmed hats, and he looked like Johnny Cash, you know. That was the type of guy he was. And I remember when I was a little kid, and Grampy would take us out to the 5-generation farm, and he would take us out, and we would drink water out of the old cow trough. Now there were catfish swimming in that cow pond, It wasn't a pond, it was a trough, and it was the nastiest, greenest, grossest thing. But I remember after playing with Grampy all day long, he'd go out and get us a great big refreshing drink out of that cow trough. And the picture on the right is actually the ladle that I remember him dipping that water out of the cow trough. So the fact that I'm even still here to this day and that I didn't die some incredible disease is just fascinating to me. But it was very interesting because a couple summers ago, I have an aunt, my dad's sister, that is not a whole lot older than I am, that I was telling her this story, and she said, that is so funny, because she said, I have that ladle. Now, when Grampy passed away, my older aunt went in and she just cleaned everything out. That was her process. She cleaned everything out. She threw everything away. And as you can imagine, that ladle was most likely the first thing to get pitched, because that is obviously garbage, but it had a memory attached to it. And so when I was telling my younger aunt this story, she said, I've got that ladle. And she sent me a picture of it. And the ladle on the left is the ladle that was on what she remembers, or what she remembers being on the trough, and that is not the same ladle. So it's very interesting, the memories that we attach to the things, and it's really important that you share those memories and you have those memories written down and listed out, because it really is about what the property is and how the property is transferred. So let's consider a little bit how property is transferred. So with titled property, it's super easy. Are you there?
You want me to just bring it out there?
Okay, well, I am. Can you hear us?
Can you bring your pictures in here to work on?
Oh, we keep unmuting here. Okay, so the titled property. So with the titled property, what it is anything that has some sort of contract attached to it. So titled property includes anything like land, home, certificates of deposit, items that actually have evidence of ownership and a binding contract attached to them. They are usually distributed either through a will, a living trust, or a gift. So these are all the things that are easily transferable. The non-titled property is a little bit different. This is stuff that is really, that value is in the eye of the beholder. So it generally is more emotional than financial, and it usually doesn't have a legal document that officially says who it belongs to. It's more sentimental than financial, and state laws actually have very little to say about how you transfer that, so that distribution is yours. You just need to decide where it goes so that it doesn't end up back in your estate or solely your estate's. So decisions about this type of property is very important, because regretfully, evidence suggests that adults that have not planned ahead in regard to their financial assets or personal property, they lack that planning and that communication, and often those inaccurate assumptions leave you wishing that you had those critical conversations with your family members. So really what this includes, these non-titled property things, are grandma's yellow plate. So guns, tools, furniture, photos, books and printed things, dishes, linens, needlework, jewelry, collections, and yes, even that singing trout. So you guys remember that singing fish that you push the button and he'd sing a song and flip his tail and everything, that favorite toy? Well, one attorney actually told me that he knew he had a plaintiff that spent thousands of dollars in legal fees to save that favorite singing toy from another family member. So you guys need to turn stuff down. So a lot of these things are emotional value only. So they're the blocks that were played with as a child, or maybe financial only. So that might be dad's gun collection, and he has 3 daughters who don't hunt and don't want guns in their home, or both emotional and financial. So that's the grandfather's watch that was passed down for 3 generations. Or maybe it's neither emotional or financial, like Aunt Ruth's painting. So there's all sorts of different things that you can think about with the non-titled property. So transfer decisions aren't always related to death. They can be from moving from a house to a smaller apartment, or moving into a long-term care facility, or they can be from death or a crisis. So my grandmother moved from a 3-bedroom house to a 1-bedroom apartment down to a long-term care facility. And so each step she actually went through that process of downsizing her things and sharing the stories with her family about why her items were important to her. So why do people avoid making these decisions and procrastinate, and what happens when they do? So if you make these decisions and you've made them prior to death, family members actually have a chance to ask for what they would like to have and to be part of that decision-making process. They also get to hear all of the stories that are related to these items, and it's an awesome way to share some memories that would have been lost in the process if you hadn't had that meeting with everyone. Now, this is important because when I first started teaching this class, I went to Good Sam's and I was teaching this little group of ladies, and this one little lady that I figured it out, and she was about 103 according to the time that she had graduated from University of Idaho. And she was a precious little thing, and she came up to me after this meeting, and she looked at me, she said, "Honey, I never imagined in a million years that my people wouldn't want my crap." And that's exactly it, is that if you don't share those memories and you don't tell people why this is important, it really is just stuff. All your stuff is just stuff unless you share that memory with someone to let them know. Everybody has their own stuff and their own important things. So sometimes the extra things are not always welcomed in the same way that you would want them to be. If you wait until after death or a crisis, you might be saddened by the results and how it affected all those that were involved. Spoken but not heard wishes might be forgotten or ignored, and already fractured relationships might crumble with the passing of a loved one and that task of sorting through their earthly items. So it's really important to do this ahead of time. And the options for distribution are limitless here. People have really creative ideas of how to distribute according to their certain situation. Some of the ideas are illegal here, the pilfering and stealing of stuff. But like the verbal or someday promises, or masking and labeling items, these are great ways to do this, but you also want to make sure that you have these written down somewhere. Masking tape and labels can fall off, and verbal and someday promises can be forgotten. I have one family that they told me that what they did is that they had a Monopoly game. And so all the kids were given, they all had this meeting, all the kids were given a certain number of Monopoly dollars, and they were allowed to go around and decide which item that they wanted, or drawn sticks. So whoever got the short end of the stick, they got the first item. So the short end won in this particular case. So there was all sorts of different ways that you could do this. We even had one family that used real money and whoever wanted to keep the real money got to keep the real money, but then the other ones, if they wanted the things, and they put that money back into the pot. So there are many different distribution options here, and it really is a personal choice. It's just really important that if you think about doing it prior to death, like a silent auction with the family, a public auction, or a garage sale, or an estate sale, it's gonna be a different feel to it. If the money is obtained after death, the cash actually goes into your estate and might even be taxable. So remember, if there are no plans and no wishes known in place, those state laws will actually apply. And so just by saying, well, I'm not going to do anything, I'm just going to let everybody else decide, state laws will actually take effect if you don't have a will or some sort of plan for your possessions. So that brings us to the will. And again, I'm not an attorney and I don't play one on TV, but remember, not having a will is a form of estate planning. So approximately 70% of folks die intestate, meaning without a will. And this is crazy because in Idaho, the only thing you can't do in a will is cut a spouse out. That's the only thing you can't do. So you get to have your final wishes heard. Everything is laid out there. And it is a huge misnomer that wills are super expensive, because they really are not. Generally, wills, for a simple will, they can cost anywhere from $150 to $200, depending on what it is. Bigger wills and more advanced wills sometimes cost between $500 and $1,000, depending on what it is. We also have trusts, and trusts are a completely different cat. So if you want more information on trusts, I can send you some more information about those. But a will is really what you need to make sure that your wishes are heard. So everything goes through probate. And a lot of people are scared of probate, but probate is basically just an announcement that tells people that someone has passed away. That it makes it so any debtors can come and claim on debt that was owed. It's just finalizing everything. And so when you have a will, it takes about 4 to 8 months with a will to actually go through the probate process and get everything all settled and move through it. It's much longer without one. So, and someone can contest, and there's just that legal battle and everything. So if there's ever any question about an estate, having a will is definitely the way to go. Having something laid out there. In Idaho, you can have a holographic or handwritten will, but they must be handwritten by the owner. You can actually have typed ones now. They've changed the law, but it has to be signed by the owner. They don't have to be witnessed or notarized, but the first 2 requirements are a must to actually make it legal. So you can do the form ones. Just make sure that you know what everything is in there. And like I said, for the amount of money that it costs to go and get a will, it's so worth it to have an attorney take care of that for you. One disclaimer on a self-made will is spend the money, hire the attorney to do the task for you. If there's even that slightest bit of chance that family members or loved ones might have a disagreement, this is just a good way to do this. Whatever method that you pick, just make sure that you destroy any old versions of wills and only keep the latest version on hand. Don't keep your very first will that you ever made just because it has sentimental value to you. this is one of the biggest problems that attorneys face, is that they're trying to figure out which will is valid. And so only keep the latest will. I'm going to open everybody up and ask them if, see if we have any questions here. So I'll go back to this one. So we'll open everybody up. If I can get down here, and maybe. So we'll unmute everybody.
Agency I'm with.
Oh my
I want to
goodness.
keep her, but if I reduce her hours and bring a male
Hi
on,
guys.
then she and I can do the in-house stuff and he and I can do the out-of-house stuff kind of thing.
I don't know who's, I don't know who I'm getting there. There we go. Maybe there. Okay. Does anybody else? I think we might have a couple people that are multitasking. So, and that is okay. But do we have anybody that has any questions right now? No questions? All good? Okay. Okay. Well, I'm going to mute you again just because that just keeps it going. And I can see Mary Jane's face, so I know somebody's still here. So okay. So here we go. Get that. So we are going to talk now about the specific devise. And what a specific devise is, this is for your non-titled property. So the will was specifically for your titled property. You can put your contracts, like your life insurance plans and stuff in there. What a specific devise is it's a separate piece of paper that actually lists your non-titled property. So you don't have to write a new will if you change your specific devise, and you can change it at any point. The thing about Idaho is you do not have to actually even turn your will in. You can make your will, you can write a will, and you can write the specific devise. Your attorney may or may not keep a copy of it, but you don't have to turn it into a courthouse or anything like that unless it's over a certain sum of money. And I honestly don't know what that certain sum of money is at this point. But all this does is this is why you need to tell your family members where your will is located, because you have the copy, you've got the original, you've got all the information. So that's why it's an important document in your organizing your financial paperwork. So what this specific devise does is you can just put it on a regular piece of paper. There's a notation in your will that says that there's going to be a specific devise in there, and you just write it down on this specific paper, that the date, and you sign it down at the bottom, and you say that very, very specifically that Aunt Carol is going to get the cross collection, or and the cross collection has 20 crosses in it, or something like that. Or Cousin Sue gets the grandma's china set. So be very specific with what it is, so that when someone, your executor or representative, is taking care of the property, that they can actually separate that. So the executor is going to be in charge of honoring your wishes to do this, but this just helps the family members and the personal representatives make the tough decisions when you or the loved one can't. So it provides a guide for your attorneys and other professionals when it is involving these non-titled items. So when you're thinking about the process of transfer, think about these 6 factors. And so we're going to talk about each one of these. We're going to talk about the sensitivity of this discussion. A lot of people have a hard time having this conversation. We want to figure out what your goals are. Then decide what fair actually is, what those meanings are. Consider the different distribution options and know that there are going to be conflicts, and just be able to agree to disagree. So we're going to go through all of these here. So the sensitivity issues, these are a big one because a lot of times family members have a really hard time dealing with the idea of death or loss of someone special. So having this conversation is really an unpleasant thing for anybody, but it's an important thing to do this. So one of these, the sensitivity issue, my grandmother was very close to getting ready to pass away, and I have two aunts and an uncle, and my mom and my uncle were very much in that process of we need to help mom with this process and help her, give her things away and downsize just a little bit because she was moving into a hospice facility, and she really needed to downsize a little bit more, and we knew that she wouldn't be with us for very much longer. My two aunts, on the other hand, knew that even simply giving away a piece of clothing was that admission of that she was going to be gone, and they couldn't do that. And so my mom brought one of my aunts down with her to one of my classes when we were talking about this, and it was just kind of eye-opening because my mom kind of settled down a little bit and realized that even though the process is important to start doing this, it's important to also be very sensitive about how you do it. And my aunt actually stepped up a little bit and she said, okay, I get why everybody is having this conversation now. This is an important thing that we do this, not because we're saying that mom is going, but because we need to make sure that those stories are told and we understand why these were important things. So there might be also an unwanted conflict with another family member. So there's all sorts of different things. If you tell somebody, divide my personal property evenly among my children, that is the absolute worst thing that you can say, because what does divide it evenly mean? So it's not uncommon for estate planning books to even tell you to say, divide my possessions equally among my children or heir. How does this work for family members that have siblings that always think that mom liked me best? So definitely think about that. Non-title transfers are all too often assumed to be matter of fact, easy and simple, but this is far from the truth with most family members. So attorneys suggest that it's most often that personal non-title property that is the issue for transfer here. So bringing up the issues of who should get what can also especially be sensitive when there's estranged family members or siblings that never got along. Then the next one is exposing family secrets. So this is a story that is in the original program. And it says, we have this pink glass bowl in our family. My great-grandmother, the oldest, received it from her mother, the oldest girl. So for 3 generations, it has passed to the firstborn granddaughter. My aunt now has it, but since she doesn't have any daughters, it will go to my dad's oldest daughter. My dad says that my oldest daughter gets it next and not my sister's oldest daughter, who is really the oldest granddaughter. My aunt, my mom's sister, just told me that during the war when Dad was overseas, Mom was raped one night, and so my oldest sister really isn't my dad's daughter. This is the reason that Dad has said for years that he only has one daughter. My oldest sister doesn't know that she isn't his daughter. Mom has never said a word about this family secret, so I guess my daughter gets the pink bowl. We need to think about the legacies that we want to leave behind. It's fine if you don't want to tell a family secret, but don't let a piece of glass or something destroy a relationship because of the family secret. The other thing is sibling rivalry, and this really does come down to the messages of mom always did like you best, or they knew I wanted it and gave it to you. Really what it is it's deciding what their rank is in the family. So really it symbolizes love and trust to carry on the family history or rituals, power, reward, or punishment. And it's really important that we don't do that. We be sensitive for the sensitive issues for the receivers. Now for the givers, this is important too. The givers are the most important with this, is because we need to know what your issue is, what you want to discuss, and why you want to discuss it. So some of these topics can be motivated by fear. A lot of times givers will say the receivers are just greedy and they want control. Or they might be surprised, dismayed, or even hurt by the responses from intended recipients. Mom, I'm sorry, I just don't have the room for anything more. Or we already have a full house. Or it's just not something I would use. And so these things that are your personal treasures are being discarded as junk. And this is a hard thing. And maybe fear that your keepsakes will just be sold or given away. So this is important. Often people blame that generation for not being willing to engage in the conversations, but it is important that you have this discussion. It is your stuff, but it is just stuff if it doesn't have that meaning attached to it. So how have you responded to another person when they've tried to initiate discussions about them giving their possessions away after death? So the other thing that you need to do is you need to think about who you want to have be part of your discussion, because we're going to have a meeting. Everybody's going to have a meeting, and you're going to sit down with your family members and you're going to line this all out. So think about who you want to be involved in this. Do you want it to be your spouse or your partner? Some people actually have separate meetings. They have one with one spouse and one with the other spouse, just to line everything out. Many parents want to involve their adult children in the conversation when planning ahead, and some say that they just want to give what they want to give. So you just need to think about who's going to be part of your discussion. Next, you need to determine what your goals are. Do you just want to preserve family history, heritage, and memories? Or maybe you want to keep peace among your family members. There's also that decision to keep it within the family and maintain your privacy, or even being fair to everybody involved and being able to determine what fair actually means, giving you that peace of mind that everybody is happy in the end. Or maybe it's contributing to society and preserving public heritage and history. These are all really important goals, but you have to determine what you want to have done with your things when you no longer need them. Next, you need to think about what's fair. Fair is a relative term. Haha. It is all relative here. So fair, equal, and equitable, they are not the same thing. So fair has too many meanings and interpretations to allow that process to just resolve itself. So equal might mean that all members of the family receive an equal number of items from a collection. I have a friend that her grandmother actually divided all of her china when she entered into a rest home. Each family member took one setting of the china, a bowl, a salad plate, a dinner plate, and a teacup, and they were all happy with that even distribution. So equal might mean that family members receive an equal dollar amount or emotional value of items, but fair is completely a different thing. So deciding what fair is might be a completely different thing. It all depends on the family. Most family members have unwritten and often unspoken rules about who should get what. And so making sure that you have those conversations and know what those rules are is very important. I'm going backwards. There we go. So, and the meaning of things will actually differ for people too. So by understanding that personal belongings have different meanings for different people, it can help you better gauge how you're going to give these things to each family member. Another friend of mine said that after she was visiting with her dad, she found out that he assumed that his gun collection and World War II collection would be a bother to his kids, and so he was considering throwing it out. That was an assumption that was so far from the truth, and it's shocking how many times we just assume that somebody isn't going to want the things that we have. The other story that I share is about my grandmother's Bible. So my dad's mom had a Bible that actually she had a couple of them, but I was very little when she passed away, and I somehow inherited one of her Bibles, but I don't remember anything about her reading to me out of the Bible or anything, and somehow it had just skipped right over the top of my dad. And so I was talking to him about it one day, and his eyes just lit up when he found out that I had her Bible. And so I gave him her Bible, and he was very delighted. And I said, "Now, when you're done with this, give it back to me. I want it back." But not all items have the same meaning for each person. I don't want anything to ever happen to that. But in the same breath, he had stronger meanings to that than I did. And then I have another little lady that she had 8 kids, and of her 8 kids, they all wanted this same cookie jar, that she had baked cookies for them their whole lives. And this cookie jar was an old ugly cookie jar that had a crack in the lid, and she decided that she couldn't decide who was going to get the cookie jar. So she went on eBay and bought 7 more of those cookie jars, put a crack in the lid, and then she gave one to each one of the 8 children. No one was the wiser. So it's not always about it's about the memory that's attached to it, not necessarily the thing. And as a giver or a receiver, it's important that we don't make assumptions about what someone might find the value in. So the other story that I share is about the English magazine collection. So I worked with a wonderful little lady. She was just delightful, but she had been telling me this story about her daughter and how excited her daughter was going to be, because she had a room upstairs in her house that her daughter was not allowed to go into. Her daughter was an adult, but her daughter was not allowed to go into this room because her entire life, this little lady has been collecting English magazines. I'm not sure what English magazines are, but what I envisioned was stacks and stacks of English magazines in this room, which is exactly what the little lady told me they were. She said she had little pathways to get through this room of these English magazines. Now, whether or not her daughter would find the value in those English magazines like she found the value in them, this is the reason why it's very important to actually start having these conversations now and not just assume. As the receiver, it is nice, since these are someone else's things, to let them have the first say into who it goes. Giving your opinion is fine, but the final decision really does belong to the giver. So the distribution options and consequences, there are lots of different distribution options in your packet that I attached to your email. There are tons of different things that you can do, and you can do a combination of these, but basically the equality rule means that everyone gets the same regardless of needs or contributions. One of my friends joked, and she said that she tells her kids to start giving her nice expensive gifts because they'll eventually get them back. The contributions rule means that those who helped more are going to receive more. Needs rule, those that need more help financially, personally, for basic living or emotionally are going to get a little more. The family members rule, this is the birth order or the current age, marital status, or personal interest with what distribution rule that you pick. Just determine what fair is, because it really is more about the process than it is about the outcome. It is about making sure that everybody gets the same amount. So when a process is actually judged to be unfair, this is when a challenge can actually happen. If the transfer process lacks accuracy, a specific device could actually help with this situation. So grandmother promised a certain rocker to a grandchild, but an aunt insisted she was taking it no matter what. Moral and ethical issues often arise when someone thinks that they're being treated unfairly or being left out of the process. One of my sisters took an item when she thought none of us were looking. Not being heard in the process. The most dominant personalities walk off with everything they want, and the others are left with the things that they don't want. Or when rules are not followed consistently. My brother was in the garage taking tools when we sisters returned from the church after the funeral. Or if someone is not represented. I was sent to represent my husband when things were doled out before the sale, and it was told that I was not included because I was just an in-law. So conflict is completely and totally normal, and there is no single communication strategy that's going to ensure that you're going to have a completely flawless transition. But there are some things that we can do to help you with getting through the process. So the first thing is to discuss and clarify the problem. Bring them all together and discuss and clarify so that you reach your goal, your common goal, your idea or viewpoint. Determine where family members are going to agree and disagree. Remember to work on the problem and not the opinion. Try to exclude personal opinions and focus on the problem or issue and not the person that's actually talking about it. Always think before you speak, and it's important to respect the view of everybody involved. Your personal needs are important whether you are the owner or the recipient. State what your needs are and remember to be careful with your words. You need to be responsible for what you do and say. Don't be hurtful to someone else if they happen to get the crystal lamp that you want. If you choose not to speak up, the answer is always going to be no. Consider what you have for alternatives and play nice. Figure out different solutions and evaluate choices. This will make the owner's job a whole lot easier in the end. The talk. Now the talk is one time, so we're building up to this one time. We are going to have a talk with our family members. This talk is going to be a scheduled time that we make an appointment for this discussion. We're going to think about where we're going to meet. Is the room large enough? Will it be comfortable and neutral for all parties? The meeting time, can everybody make it? Look for the least stressful time for the group. Who do you want to be there? Do you want in-laws, stepchildren, a personal representative, friends, caregivers? What skills and contributions do you want these people to add to your group? Don't have other agendas in mind or a surprise attack for family members like the annual family picnic or Easter or Thanksgiving. Make this be a special occasion where everybody comes together and has this meeting. Have a guideline to keep the discussion focused. It's important. And be rehearsed and keep the discussion on topic. These are all really important factors. If you have those surprise attacks, people that are having sensitive issues with it will not have enough time to prepare for it. If you don't have a strong agenda, you're going to tootle off into a different realm and not get your goals met. What are your goals? Have those goals written ahead of time. Eliminate distractions. Make sure you get a babysitter for the little ones and don't be distracted. Make sure that you're maintaining really good eye contact with your audience. Know that there are going to be differences and conflicts and be prepared for both. There's a whole section in the packet on how to be prepared for those conflicts and the disagreements. Listen to the other person and clarify your case. Give reasons for your reasons. Having these items may provide an opportunity to say goodbye to a loved one or have something to remember them by. Hear what's being said from all family members in the meeting or all members of the meeting. It could be friends. Your friends could be involved in this too. Listening doesn't always mean agreeing, but listening means that you've heard what's been said. So repeat what you think you've heard by saying phrases like, I hear you saying, or I don't think grandchildren should be involved in this decision because, and then be open for rebuttals. This is going to be a stressful time for everybody involved. It's hard to talk about this, so come in with a clear head, a rested body, and an open heart. And then at the very end, finish the conversation. This shouldn't be an ongoing talk that you have over and over again. Once you have everything listed out, you're done. You don't have to do this anymore. So my sister and I sat down with my dad this last year and this last summer, and this is one of the things that we did with him is we sat down and we had this talk with him. And it was awesome because he got to tell us all these stories about these things, and we learned so many new things about our dad just by listening to these stories that he was telling us. So the ground rules, or just in summary from everything that we've learned today, is make sure that you're supportive. Don't poo-poo a sibling's need or an idea. Let your family know where you stand. It's important that you say something. Don't hold it in. Make sure you express your feelings at the time. If you don't, the answer is no. You want to make sure that you talk about it. Pay attention to your audience and listen to what they have to say, and look for creative challenges to come along, and always stay focused on the goal at hand. Planning prior to death is always the way to go. Everything does have a consequence. Make sure that you review what your options are, visit with your family, talk with your attorney before you make a final decision, and you want to get it right the first time so you don't have to have another visit. And always be aware of what your state laws are as you plan and carry out all your non-titled distribution. You can call legal aid or the county court assistance office or a local attorney, and they'll be glad to help you with those legal questions. The most important part, though, is to always make sure that you are celebrating and not having this time of sadness, because this is the opportunity to write down those important stories and consider why these are such meaningful items. Use the opportunity to make your family laugh and show them that you care enough to eliminate this burden of property reassignment. You will be absolutely happy that you did. And for more information or resources, I don't have these here in my house with me, but I do have them in my office. So if you're interested in these are, I think, $12.50 online if you want to buy them online, or you can buy them from me. I get them at a bulk rate at $7.50, and they are a nice little copy of all of these things put together. If you've got a family member that you'd like to share this with, definitely share my packets with everybody. Those packets are floating all over the place, so share them with everybody. They're wonderful resources to have. And then this is the packet. You can find these packets online too, or you can give me a call and I'll get those for you. One of the other things that I like to share when we're talking about Grandma's Yellow Pie Plate is this is one of the resources that I like to use and share, and this one is actually in my office too, but it's called 5 Wishes, and you can usually pick these up at Gritman, but I have a whole stack of them in my office, so if you want one of these, we can sneak into the office and get one, and I can mail them to you. But our office is actually closed right now. We are open and we're answering calls and emails, but the building is actually closed right now. So the 5 Wishes, what it does is it is your 5 wishes for how you want to be taken care of. The person I want to make care decisions for me when I can't, the kind of medical treatment I want and don't want, how comfortable I want to be, how I want people to treat me, and what I want my loved ones to know. So this is a really good thing to have, and this is valid in most of the states. There's only a few of them, that 42 states recognize this. So Washington and Idaho are listed on here. Oregon is not. So if you're, but this is a really good thing to have. It goes right along with the other resources that we have. So this is it. I will open everything up for questions. This is who gets Grandma's Yellow Pie Plate, and I hope that this has answered everybody's questions a little bit here. I'm going to open this up, unmute everybody.
There's a type of music called dubstep, which could be
Okay. Okay, guys. So anybody have any questions?
I posted a question on the group chat.
It's what, Darlis?
I posted a question on the chat.
Oh, okay. Yes, and I have to. So now, as soon as I started sharing my screen, so I'm going to unshare my screen again, and then I can go back into the chat and look. So let's get into the chat, and we're going to make it bigger so I can see it. My little laptop screen is little itty bitty tiny, little itty bitty bitty tiny. So yes, I did mute myself apparently. I'm sorry, guys. At least we weren't halfway through it before we figured it out, so. Okay, so one person wanted to know what the difference between the attachments were. So the Grandma's Yellow Pie Plate from 2017, it is just the packet that I use. The Grandma's Yellow Pie Plate 2020 was just the PowerPoint slides. That was all the difference between those. So let's see here, and says, I have 2 kids with a previous husband and 1 child and my current husband. He would like to see his gun collection and all camping, hunting, fishing, ATV to go to our youngest son. I think that could cause some hurt feelings. Do you suggest separate meetings with the kids? So with this, you can have the separate meetings with the kids, or you can have them both together. Sometimes having them both together, I know that there have been cases where people have had somebody that thinks that they're the ones that need to have this specific item. And then when the owner sits down with them and explains why they want the other person to have that item, it makes it very clear to them. So again, remember, it's just stuff. And even though it's stuff that they may want, generally if it is a half sibling, they're gonna want their sibling to have these things. So you can have separate meetings, or you can have them all together. But it's definitely, I think it's personality wise, you know them better than I do. If you think it's going to cause an eruption or hurt feelings before the meeting, I would have the separate meetings. But if you just explain things and just say that this is what it is, it usually works out just fine. So
Thank you. Okay, thanks.
So let's see here. Do I have any other questions here? Nope, I don't have any other questions. So guys, this is, if there are any other questions, I'll take those now. But look, we finished on time today.
It was great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tomorrow is going to be protecting your identity theft, your personal identity. And this is an awesome class. It goes right along with these last 3 that we've done. And then I also want you guys to be thinking about other classes that you would be interested in. And I will be sending out an email tomorrow to everybody with just some basic ideas to give me some ideas of what you might want to come and see another time. So we've got lots of room to do these fun classes, and I've got lots of time to do them. So definitely let's get some classes in here. This is a good forum to do this. So you guys have an awesome day today, and we will see you later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.